Alright, welcome back. It's been a while. So, since I've been going, I don't even know if I put it into one of my previous videos or not. I know I threw some stuff up. Instagram, maybe, and my stories on YouTube, but since, I want to say about mid-November, I've been in CDL class, CDL Training, I should call it. And it was supposed to be, so this class I took, it was designed to be 160 hours. You're supposed to go Monday through Friday for 4 weeks. That's the basic program. If you go straight through, they have like evening classes and weekend classes. They also have and I think those are stretched out to 10 weeks. So I went through what I was trying to do was go straight through. So like I said, started then, and the goal was to be done by Christmas, definitely by the end of the year. But I'm just now getting my actual license in hand as of yesterday. So yeah, there was a lot to cover with that. So like I said, Monday through Friday 7 to 3 was the schedule, but they wanted the students to be there around 6:45, and they brought you back at like 3, and that was supposed to be the end of the day. So you get there at quarter to 7. There's a classroom that you go into that you scan in your badge, let them know you're there. You get hooked up with one of the trainers for the day, and either you're going out onto the yard to practice your maneuvers, or you're going on the road to practice your road skills. We only had a couple of days of class where you actually were. Actually, we only had 2 days of classroom time, really. We had half of the first day, which was orientation, and then we had 1 day dedicated for just hours of service. Now, when it comes to getting, when it comes to getting the CDLA is what I was going for, or what I went for. There's 3 parts you have to pass in order to get the license. So the first part is your pre-trip, where you basically check out the entire truck before you get on the road. The next part is what they call road maneuvers. They just call them maneuvers, I guess. That's where you do, depending on where you test at, whether it's the DMV or a third party. They pick 3 maneuvers you do in like the yard maneuvers, that's what they call it. Where you do, and you get them all right, and you go into the next level, the next part of the test, which is the road test, where they take you out and you demonstrate that you can operate the vehicle safely. So those are the 3 main parts of the test. Now, the way the training went, like I said, we went out to the yard. You alternated back and forth from being on the yard, practicing your yard maneuvers, and then going out driving on the street. When you did I guess it depended. So I guess when you go out to the yard, or when you get assigned your trainer for the day, the ratio was usually about 5 to 1. Our class size for the class that I was in, they were running classes every 2 weeks. My class size was 10 people, and they broke us up into groups of 5. They mixed up the groups, so you didn't always stay with the same people, but for the most part, you were grouped with one trainer, 5 to 1. So you go out. So if it was a yard day, you would go out to the yard. Typically you spend your first hour typically you spend your first hour from that's going to be from like 7 to 8 doing your pre-trip. So I want to say the pre-trip, you had to check 146 items on the truck, inside and out. And that consists of, like under the hood, all the axles, doors, exhaust, fifth wheel, trailer, all the what else? Oh, inside the cab, your air brakes, all of that consisted of what your pre-trip is. So you gotta get that right. Now there's certain things that you can fail on. If you don't get them right, that you'll fail. Like if you don't, for example, like on the trailers, at least in the trucks that we were training in, you had 2 spring valves. One that was for your truck or your tractor brakes, and then there was another for the trailer brakes. During your air brakes test, there's a part where the brakes go, where the spring valves pop out on their own, and if you grab them or help them or anything, we were told that was an automatic failure. So there's certain things you can't do, or you just don't, or you fail. Obviously, if you're doing a road test and you get an accident, fail, hit too many curbs or something like that. So because they're doing points, and certain things are just so many points that you'll fail. So like I said, pre-trip is your first. We would do that for the first hour, and then we would get in the truck and practice the yard maneuvers. And what the yard maneuvers they had us practicing was, it was like a rotation we did. You started out, you set up the truck. There were 3, maybe 4 lanes wide where we practiced. And you start off on your far left, and then what you would do is like an offset, I think they call it offset backing. So you basically back up the truck and trailer through cones on the blind side, on the passenger side. So instead of going straight back, you back through cones that are offset to the right. And you gotta go all the way through. You can't hit any lines. Well, you can't hit any lines once you go through. You get 2 opportunities to pull up to like adjust yourself, and you can get out 2 times to check. So that's the first move. And again, this is just all based on where I'm testing and where I was training, where I was testing and where I was training. So that's the first move. And then once you get that done, you go right into the next move, which is the parallel park. So you back up, offset to the right, you go through those cones, and then once you get through there, you pull back through those cones all the way up, and you line your truck up, and on the right side of where you're lined up is a parallel park spot. So you pull all the way up, you line up your trailer with the cones that are on that side, and then you parallel park the truck and trailer into the spot on the right side, or your passenger side, offset side, line side. And same thing, you get 2 pull-ups, 2 get-outs. Now the difference with that one was, because you had to go into the parking spot, they treated the lines of the parking spot as if there were walls, meaning that you can't have anything hanging over those lines. And there's 3, not because you go into the box. In that line, obviously, you can roll over and drive through. But the other 3, the front, the passenger side, and the rear lines, you can't go over those, or you'll get points for what they call encroachment. I think there's 2 points for encroachment, meaning you go over a line, and then there's 1 point for extra pull-ups. I don't think you get any extra get-outs. I think if you get out extra time, I think that counts as a fail. Not 100% on that. So anyway, that's a parallel park. So you do the parallel park, get it in there. Once you're all the way in, and for everyone, when you go from one move to the next, to let the instructor know or the examiner know that you're done, you blow the horn. So after you finish that move and you're all the way in, then you pull through the 2 cones that you had to kind of weave around to get in. You pull straight forward through those cones, and then once you get to the end, they had a little area marked out. Once you get to the end of it, you pull all the way through, then you back all the way through those cones you go through the parking spot, basically. You go all the way out the parking spot forward, and then you come all the way back through the parking spot. and that's what they call your straight line backing. And for that, you get 1 get out and 1 pull up. That's it. Those are the 3 moves. So it's tricky because, well, let me go on to the next one. So then that's what we were practicing for that entire day, if that was a yard day. Now, if it was an on the road day, then still do pre-trip for an hour, depending on if you were bobtailing or you actually had a trailer. And what they mean by bobtailing, I didn't know before I started doing it, is when you basically don't have a trailer, it's just a tractor. So if you're bobtailing, then when we first started, they just had us going around in the yard, and then they took us out to the street. That's kind of how they progressed through that. And then eventually we started driving with a trailer on, and this is around and down in the town and in the city. So yeah, you start out with a tanker. Actually, I don't think that one. So you start out with a tanker, and they say that the reason why you start out with a tanker is because you can still see around the tanker. You see around it way better than you can if it was a full-on trailer. And it was shorter. The trailer, at the truck center trailer, I think there were only 42 feet to the axles. So with the tanker, the entire thing was only like 42 feet. Now, the trailer that we used, that was like, I guess, a regular, I think they call it like a dry van trailer. That one had the same axle, like the same distance in the axles. I think it was still 42, but it had an overhang in the back, which made the whole thing 48. So, like I said, we started out tanker, then you move to trailer. So on the driving days, you get to the yard, do the pre-trip, get hooked up to a trailer. You hook up and they had us doing everything. I didn't actually back the trailer up back the truck onto a trailer until like the last week. But we would, when the instructor or the trainer would back the trailer up, we'd get out, we would raise the landing gear and hook up the glad hands and electrical line, the service line, the service line and the emergency line and the electrical line. We hook up all the lines, and then roll out. Make sure that the safety handle was locked in that the locking jaws around the kingpin. So yeah, and then we roll out to the street. While we're in the truck, well, just like if we're in the yard, we rotate because it's 5 to 1 in terms of the ratio. So just like when we're in the yard, how we would do it is I would get in the truck, say I'm the first up. I get in the truck, I go through all of my moves. I have 15 minutes. There were 2 ways we did it, sorry. So we're in the yard, we did it 2 ways. One way we did, you had 15 minutes regardless. So however many times you can do your moves in 15 minutes, that's it. After 15 minutes, you switch out to the next driver and you go on through the rotation. Just keep going on around. And then there was other times where we did it where you did all 3 moves and then you just switched out at that point because we were going through them faster. So the idea is, like I said, you just keep on rotating in and out of the truck, getting practice. Now, when you're on the road, you have the instructor with you, instructors in the passenger seat, and we would rotate. We only would have, on the road, we actually would only have 4 people on the road, now that I think about it. I don't think there was ever 5 people in the truck along with the instructor. So 4 to 1 when it came to driving. The trainer would sit up in the passenger side, and we would do what they call a DMV loop. So we would start out at the DMV, drive the loop that they would take you when you would have your road test if you were testing at the DMV, and then we would switch out once we got back to the start. So we did the DMV loop, and there was another loop they called the Hills, where we went through another part of town, and there was basically just really tight turns and steep hills. And same thing, we would start, go through the course, get back to the end, switch out to driving. So that was driving days. And that was pretty much, like I said, that's the basics of how that went. While we were on the yard days were rougher than driving days because you basically had to stand outside while the other person drove. So you had to wait outside for your turn. And it rained, it snowed, it was really, really cold some days. I mean, it wasn't bad every day, but a lot of days it was just, the elements were definitely something to contend with. So anyway, so that was that. Trying to think what else. So yeah, the pre-trip. The pre-trip was probably one of the toughest things to get right, at least for me. One of the things was because, again, it's just a lot of things to get right, and the trucks were different, which that made it difficult for driving in the yard and on the street. But not as much for those because things would just be in different locations. So anyway, yeah, that was one of the challenges. So when it comes to the schedule, I wanted to touch on that. So the schedule, like I said, was supposed to be, the basic format, 4 straight weeks, Monday through Friday. However, I started right before Thanksgiving, so lost 2 days that week. The school was closed that Thursday and Friday. It was closed Thanksgiving and Black Friday. And then it stretched out over Christmas. So the school was closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So they kind of, by default, kind of pushed it out to an extra week just in terms of the time frame, the span of the course. Not that big of a deal. When I went up, one of the things that was a hang-up, though, for me personally, was when I went up to go take my exam. It was the 30th. When I went to go take my exam, we had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because where we took our exam wasn't in the state that I actually licensed in. It wasn't in Delaware. It was in PA. We drove across the PA to a third-party test facility, and it was like a couple hours away. So we had to meet at the training. We had to meet at the school at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then ride up. The trainer would take up 4 or 5 people, and go to your test. So first time I went up there, we're all up there. Get up early in the morning. It was raining and cold. Get there. Everyone's getting checked in, and the test guy was like, "Hey, you are restricted. You have a restriction on your license for air brakes." And I never thought about it and didn't realize it. And the reason, he was like, "Well, yeah, you can't. Not only can you not test today, but you shouldn't have ever been driving a truck at all." Because one of the things that they were doing or said they were doing while on days that you drove, the trainer that day, you would have to show your regular driver's license, your learner's permit, and your DOT physical. You had to, every time you drove the truck, you had to show that trainer that day. So every day I would show him that, and it would be fine. Get out, drive, do everything. So the examiner was like, "Yeah, you shouldn't even have been driving or testing," because I asked him, well, can I at least do the in-cab or the pre-trip? He was like, "Nah, you can't. You're not trained to even operate this. You're not. You're not fully trained to operate or licensed." I forget he said, to be able to operate the equipment, even in a training capacity. So he's like, "Yeah, you got to go back to the DMV and get your air brakes, air brakes endorsement, I guess." So that day, I basically got up and went up there for nothing. So came back same day, went and took my air brakes portion of the CDL exam on paper or in the computer, I guess. I did the air brake portion, and at the same time I did the hazmat and tanker, just to get it out of the way. I got them all that day. It was fine. And I had to wait 2 weeks now to be able to get rescheduled. So not a whole lot I can do about it. it kind of sucked. I was really, really pissed that morning for like a good 10-15 minutes. Like I really, really was livid, but you know, I got over it quick. It's nothing, you know, it happens, whatever. The thing was crazy is that everyone looked at every time I showed my permit to the people at the driving school, nobody caught that it had restrictions on it. They didn't catch it at the school, meaning the trainers didn't catch it, the administration, because you got to give them your credentials when you sign up for the school. Like, nobody there caught it. Even the actual test place, in order to schedule, it's weird lighting. I don't know if that's better. Yeah, so even the test facility, when you send up your documents, they verify that you are able to even take the exam, so they didn't even catch it. So that kind of sucked. Anyway, went back, so 2 weeks later, they called me in a few days earlier just so I can get familiar with the truck again, get some more practice in, which that helped. Having more time was always better. And then I went up and took the test. Just like I said, it was you start out doing, like I said, you start out doing the pre-trip. If you make it past that, then you can go on to the next part, which are the road and the yard maneuvers. If you get past that, then you can go out and actually do the road test. So when I went up there, a couple guys, I think I went up there, was 3 of us. One guy didn't make it, the other guy made it. And obviously I got mine too. So that was CDL training. I went back. So I guess the last part, the reason why I'm still just now getting my license. So they say because it's out of state, they got to transfer it, which I didn't get that at first. I spoke to a young lady a while back when I first got started making videos. I forget. I think she was out of Atlanta, out of Georgia, but she was experiencing riding big rigs, and she was telling me that there's a place in Florida that you can go to take your CDL. And I think she said they only charged like $500. And I was like, you know, I didn't know at all what she was talking about. But I was like, okay. At the time, I had no interest in really doing it. It was just like, you know, just part of conversation. But I still didn't understand how you could take your test in another state and then, you know, and still be valid. But apparently there's places in the United States where you can test you can test one place in one state and then it transfers back to your state. It's like a third-party situation. So anyway, that's what happened here. Tested in PA and transferred back to Delaware. When I passed the test that day, they said, hey, you know, it should take a couple of days. Usually takes about 48 hours. And you can go to DMV, pick up your license. Cool. So I went and gave it. I went 2 days later, still nothing. Third day, still nothing. Went over the weekend, came back. The next day after that, still nothing. So what happened? I called the driving school. I called the DMVs. What it ended up being was just some kind of hiccup with Martin Luther King Day that just threw everything off. So it ended up taking a little over a week from the time that I passed to me actually getting my license in my hand. So yeah, that's that part. And what else about the CDL? So one thing I will say is it was way harder than I thought it would be. You know, aside from all like the shenanigans at the school, it was just way more difficult. There's a lot, like the whole pre-trip thing. Like I said, it's 146 things. Eventually, you get used to it, but at the rate that we were doing it, it was intense. It was a lot. It was just hard to grasp. Same thing with the driving. Like I figured that wouldn't be that big of a deal, but it is. It's way trickier. So like I said, the part about the pre-trip that's difficult is that there's just so many parts. There's just a lot, and you have to basically memorize it. With the parking, with the yard maneuvers, that's tricky because Well, at least for me, the hard part was the angles. Each truck drives different, meaning, if you turn it sharp to the left or to the right, it'll turn sharper. So you'll get either too much angle or not enough angle, and that will make or break you being able to get in the parking spot or get your proper setup for going on your offset backing. So that was a little weird. It was frustrating because you would go from truck to truck and it would just turn different. So you do good one day, come back the next day and they switch out the truck or switch out your trailer, and it was like almost starting over again sometimes. And when we practiced the maneuvers on the yard, it was a full truck and trailer. The only time we didn't have a trailer was when we first started. So yeah, that was pretty difficult too. Also too, sometimes the lines on the ground, you can't really see them. When you took the test, you could clearly see them. They were bright yellow, but where we were training, it was an asphalt parking lot with white dotted lines that just weren't fresh, so it was hard to see sometimes. The trucks weren't the best. They were test trucks, so they weren't even street legal. They just worked. We never used gas or used the accelerator on the yard. It was just all idle speed, and they just were, it was just inconsistent, which made it tough. All right, so then when it comes to driving on the road, that was tricky too, because again, they're all different, and it was the same idea as on being on the yard, less about the angles and the steering, but more about the gearbox and the clutch. So the clutches, depending on which, they were all Freightliners, but different years and different models, and some of the gearboxes were way loose, meaning like to go into first or second gear, you never really use first gear, but like to go into gear, to find the gear, like you would literally like go from as far, like I want to say a total play was like maybe like a foot, 2.5 foot sometimes. Whereas though some of the gearboxes, you had less than a foot play. It was like just so tight and then so sensitive, like you had to get it directly in line, or it just wasn't going. So the alignment was weird. The clutch was either real spongy and soft, or really, really hard in some. And the reason why that was really a big deal, at least for me, that was tough, because on top of the differences in the trucks, I've driven manual transmissions all, from the very beginning when I first started learning how to drive, so I figured that wouldn't be that big of a deal. But little did I know that with those big trucks, you got a double clutch every time you shift. At least that's how we were taught. Some people don't clutch at all. They call it floating the gears. I didn't even try that. But you double clutch, which means that every time you go to shift the gear, like so to put the gear in, to put the truck in first gear, you obviously push your foot in the clutch, push in the clutch, put the truck in gear, and then you take off by letting off the clutch, and now you're in first gear. But to go to second gear, you have to push the clutch again to get it to neutral, take your foot off the clutch, and then you put your foot back on the clutch again to put it into the gear, which I've heard of double clutching. I never had a whole lot of experience with it, and I didn't know it was mandatory. With these trucks, you had to do it again, at least for the exam. Now the catch with that is with the RPMs and the speed and all that, the trucks are very sensitive. So if you don't get it, if you don't have the right rhythm and timing and go to the right location for the gear and the right amount of clutch, you're going to miss the gear, and then all that timing is off. So the way they instructed us is like, okay, so you get the RPMs up to, you want to shift that, they say like between 12 and 1400 RPM. So you shift, and it's, when you're downshifting, it's a whole nother ball of wax with that too. But you had to be somewhat precise in order to get that in. So your timing had to be on point. And if you miss the gear, like I said, the whole thing is off. So I know I said it already, but that's what made it tricky. Is all of those things. Also when with the trucks that we had, they were 10-speed transmissions, which I never thought about it. I mean, I vaguely heard that, oh yeah, trucks have more gears and all that good stuff. But yeah, 10 speeds, which means that you still have the same basic gear pattern, but you have a high and low gear. And there's what they call a splitter on the shifter that takes you into the high side of the transmission. So meaning you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your gear pattern with the splitter down in your low gears. Now when you go from 5th to 6th gear, you have to flip up the splitter and then go to 6th gear, which was basically your first gear. And then you continue to go up the gears with that. And the tricky part about that is, like, you gotta hit the splitter. If you don't, then you're trying to go back in the first gear. It's weird. Or if you're in 6th gear, you want to go down to 5th gear, you gotta put the splitter back down, or you be trying to go it. It's just all kinds of mess. So just one of those things where it's just a different way of thinking about it. You can stall out real easy if you don't put the splitter down when you stop. Also, you didn't start out in 1st gear most of the time. You started out in like 3rd or 4th gear, which is same idea, but it's starting out from 1st gear in a car, but it's just awkward because it's not starting in normal place. The reverse was in a weird place, and you have high and low for reverse. So yeah, I think that was it. Those were my challenges when I had to do it. Getting through it. It was definitely, I learned a lot. It helped me a ton driving my truck now, just because when you get used to, like, I had to drive that big, huge truck and trailer in some tight spots, and I didn't even have a 53-foot. But once you get comfortable doing that and maneuvering that, it just, for me, it just makes me feel more comfortable driving my truck now. So that's definitely a plus. And now it's just a matter of figuring out how to integrate that into either, a career in trucking as with the company, or, leveling up my business somehow, some way, so I can carry more weight, carry more cars, or, heavier freight. So yeah, that's it. Just wanted to give my take, share my experience in terms of, also give some insight as to what I've been doing. Because it's been tough with doing that during the day and trying to sneak out and do some loads overnight and on the weekends. Just not a lot of time. So anyway, that's my story. Just thought I'd share it with you guys. That's all I have for now. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll check you in the next video. Peace.